He said, those Kennedys, he repeated, they will never embarrass me again. That's no threat, that's a promise. And I'd like the entire world to know how I personally feel is the fact Lyndon Johnson knew about the assassination and was a part of it.
Boy, if that Kennedy gets shot, we gotta know where we at. They'll pick up somebody, however that's throw the public off.
Oui. Il y a bien eu un quatrième coup de feu, conclut la commission parlementaire dans son rapport de janvier 1979, en s'appuyant sur l'analyse des enregistrements effectués par des micros de la police de Dallas.
November 22nd, 1963. President John F. Kennedy is gunned down in Dallas. A crushing blow to the country and a personal affront to FBI agent Don Adams.
Oh, it shocked me. It devastated me. And I thought to myself, what did I do wrong?
Adams is retired, but still can't shake the assassination or investigation by the Warren Commission.
Nothing but a bunch of liars.
The Warren Commission determined that Lee Harvey Oswald fired the fatal shots from the Texas Book Depository. But Adams says the real person behind the plot isn't even mentioned in their report.
I know for a fact in my heart that these things happened.
Based on his service with the FBI and years researching National Archives, Don Adams says at best the Kennedy assassination is a massive failure to communicate between federal agencies and then cover up. At worst, it's conspiracy to commit murder.
It's embarrassing because I love the FBI. It's a great organization, best law enforcement agency in the business. But we also have to face facts and reality that there are bad people in this world.
The Army War veteran joined the agency in 1962. He was assigned to Thomasville, Georgia, where he began investigating Joseph Miltier, a name unfamiliar to many, but not the government.
He was reported to be one of the most violent men in the country.
A militant activist with ties to hate groups like the KKK. November 1963, an FBI informant named William Somerset said Miltier was threatening JFK.
Saying bad things about what they wanted to do to Kennedy.
Miltier frequently discussed assassinating President Kennedy. A threat was even captured on tape by Miami intelligence officers November 9th, 1963, just weeks before Dallas. Miltier is talking to Somerset.
Well, how the hell do you figure the best way would be to get from an office building with a high-margin rifle? And they're going to really try to kill it.
He describes smuggling a gun into the building.
Well, they've always been kind of behind you take the part. Boy, if that Kennedy gets shot, we got to know where we at. They'll pick up somebody, however that's throw the public off.
It should have stopped the president from traveling instantly.
It didn't, and November 22nd, Miltier is photographed near the motorcade moments before the assassination.
They messed up, and all the other agencies messed up.
Is there any way Lee Harvey Oswald could have killed John F. Kennedy?
Don says evidence he saw while stationed in Dallas proves it, beginning with the Zapruder film.
And all of a sudden I saw the president go like this with his hands. And I said, how? I said, he was shot in the throat. The agent said to me, Don, be careful what you say. And there were no shots from the front. The very first thing that the doctor said was, hell, he was shot in the throat. That's a bullet hole. The minute that you have a frontal shot, Oswald can't be the shooter, because this came from the grassy knoll. And Oswald was in Texas School Book Depository.
The Warren Commission ruled that 3 shots were fired, but Don counted 11. And at the book depository, he wondered how Oswald did that in 7.5 seconds from a bolt-action rifle.
Because I was in Korea and I know what I'm talking about. The first weapon they found in the building was a Mauser. And nobody ever discussed that.
A German Mauser, I believe.
There's another word that a Mauser has been found.
Mauser.
Oswald worked in the building where the murder weapon, the German-made Mauser rifle, was
one still found in the Mauser with which the assassin was apparently armed.
As you see, they are bringing the weapon that was allegedly used in the assassination of President John F. Kennedy this afternoon at 12:30 here in Dallas.
6.5, apparently made in Italy in 1940.
Police have traced a rifle purchased in Chicago.
From Dallas, we have heard that the definite identification has been made of the type of rifle used in the assassination of President Kennedy. It was not a Mauser, as has been reported through most of yesterday and today, but an Italian Manlicher Carcanto.
Witnesses reported Oswald was in the lunchroom 4 floors down on the opposite side of the building drinking a Coke after the first shot.
No heavy perspiration or heavy breathing or anything. Couldn't have been done. It was impossible.
Afterward, while Oswald was arrested, Miltier was, quote, jubilant, bragging to Somerset, "You thought I was kidding when I said he would be killed from a window with a high-powered rifle." He told sources in the KKK, "Don't worry about Oswald. He doesn't know anything."
All this stuff bothers me.
Upsetting to many people. In 1976, the U.S. House of Representatives Select Committee on Assassinations was established. They determined a shot was fired from the grassy knoll and in summary believed, quote, "On the basis of evidence available, President Kennedy was probably assassinated as a result of a conspiracy, though they were unable to identify the other gunmen." Was Joseph Miltier involved or someone else? Don thinks time will tell, but it's also running out.
I mean, when we die off, when we're gone, there's not going to be anybody who's going to sit here and tell you these things. I hope the truth gets told, whatever it is.
Suzanne Stratford, Fox 8 News.
En 1976, plus de 80% des personnes interrogées ne croyaient pas à la thèse du tireur isolé. Poussé par la pression populaire, le Congrès met sur pied une commission d'enquête parlementaire sur les assassinats. Deux révélations servent de déclic. La première, c'est une lettre d'Oswald adressée à l'agent du FBI James Hosty, qui a été détruite après sa mort. Austin ne l'avait pas mentionné à la commission. La seconde fut la découverte de l'implication de la CIA dans plusieurs tentatives d'attentats contre Fidel Castro, révélant la présence d'éléments incontrôlables au sein de cette agence gouvernementale. Gerald Ford, membre de la commission Warren, déclare à la nouvelle commission d'enquête que s'il avait eu connaissance de ces informations, la commission dont il faisait partie aurait élargi son champ d'investigation.
If we had known of these assassination plans or attempts,
si nous avions eu connaissance de projets ou de tentatives d'assassinat par une agence du gouvernement fédéral, nous aurions certainement étendu notre enquête à ces organisations.
Oui, il y a bien eu un quatrième coup de feu, conclut la commission parlementaire dans son rapport de janvier 1979, en s'appuyant sur l'analyse des enregistrements effectués par des micros de la police de Dallas. Grâce à un équipement acoustique sophistiqué, cette analyse a permis d'identifier la provenance du troisième des 4 coups de feu. Celui-ci est parti du monticule herbeux. Un autre tireur au moins a donc fait feu. La commission d'enquête parlementaire conclut qu'il y a probablement eu complot.
Jack, what do you think about the hearing? I want to correct what I stated before. If he was vice president, remember I said he was vice president? Yes, I did when I mentioned about Adlai Stevens. If he was vice president, there would never have been an assassination of our beloved President Kennedy. Would you explain that, Jack? Well, the answer is the man in office now.
Says, well, I bet you that President Johnson is going to be real pleased when he finds that now they're calling me the #1 bomber. And George Christian said, oh, don't be too sure. He said, you know, LBJ, he never likes to be #2.
And then he calmed down and he turned around and he said at that time it was the oil people I knew and the CIA.
Wait, are you saying that Lyndon Johnson, was he now President of the United States?
Yes.
Said to you personally?
Yes.
You swear this?
Swear.
That the oil people and the CIA were involved in the murder of John Kennedy?
Yes. H.L. Hunt was a very dear friend of mine, and 3 days prior to the assassination, H.L. Hunt gave me one of the wanted for treason pamphlets, and they just bombarded Dallas with it. And
wanted for treason JFK.
Uh-huh.
They thought that the liberal president was a treasonous man.
Right. So I said, H.L., you cannot do the President of the United States that way. And he said, well, hell, I can. I'm the richest man in the world. I can do whatever I want to. But Dallas, Texas was bombarded, and he passed them out personally.
Did you meet Jack Ruby Madeline?
Lyndon Johnson's attorney introduced me to him.
Go on.
I'm serious.
When was this?
Oh, 1952, I think, way back.
10 years before the assassination?
Oh, yeah.
So Lyndon Johnson's attorney, which one?
Jerome Ragsdale.
Everything was extremely tense, and suddenly it was discovered that the Harvey had sent a team of people into Cuba, and the Kennedys were very concerned that this crisis might explode into nuclear war. And Robert Kennedy particularly was in a rage when he heard that this loose cannon had added a further element of unpredictability to the situation.
Harvey hated the Kennedys. After the Cuban Missile Crisis, he had a confrontation with Bobby Kennedy that virtually ended his career, exiling him to an intelligence station in Rome.
We had a terrible experience with the ones that were handling it at the time of the missile crisis. They were going to send 60 people into Cuba right during the missile crisis. Nobody knew what they were doing. And we pinned it down to the fellow who was supposed to be in charge, and he said we planned it because the military wanted it done. And I asked the military, and they never heard of it.
Oh my God.
My understanding is that Harvey had a very severe clash with Bobby Kennedy around the time of the missile crisis, and that Kennedy basically
I think it was
said, "Get rid
earlier
of
than
this
that,
guy."
and he posted an old slogan somewhere in the agency premises that said, "The tree of liberty must be nourished by the blood of patriots," and this incensed Bobby Kennedy, and they clashed on that particular point.
I believe he was killed because he already had détente. It's come out now through a book called JFK and the Unspeakable. It was discovered in the Vatican. Kennedy and Khrushchev were back channel communicating that their governments didn't even know it. And both of them had agreed they were going to end the Cold War by '65. Imagine what the world would be. And what happened? Kennedy was killed. They were doing it through Pope John. He died of cancer, and Khrushchev a coup d'etat happened in Russia, and Khrushchev was taken out of office because there were people that wanted the Cold War. And what did we get substantially? 20 more years of it. We had actually been in there since the 50s with advisors, and President Kennedy had even raised that number of advisors, but then he took a turn the other way before he was killed. Kennedy had ordered our first 1,000 out by December of '63, and he said we'd be completely out of Vietnam by the time he was reelected and serving in '65. So there would not have been a Vietnam War had John F. Kennedy lived. But unfortunately, John F. Kennedy was taken out. He was killed. Now, that's another matter on its own of who did that, but you notice that as soon as Kennedy was killed, the Vietnam policy reversed itself. Lyndon Johnson then sent more troops in, and of course, we'll discuss it later, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which is what put our combat troops on the ground in Vietnam.
Let me ask you,
Sure.
John F. Kennedy's assassination.
Yep.
Who did that?
It was done by William Harvey, who was the head of the CIA's assassination unit at that time. David Morales was directly involved in it. He likewise is the gentleman who killed Che Guevara down in Bolivia in '67, where they put him up against a firing wall and killed him and shot and killed him. Morales was part of that. I believe that because I saw, heard, and read a confession from E. Howard Hunt on a deathbed to his son. And when he confessed, it was not a confession of remorse. It was a confession of pride. He wanted the world to know that we helped you out. We killed John Kennedy, this communist sympathizer.
But Jesse, aren't you being slightly naive? People can say anything on a deathbed to immortalize themselves. When I die, I might say, you know what? I don't want anyone to know about my long-standing love affair with Elizabeth Taylor. It doesn't mean anything, does it?
I can be slightly naive, except the fact that you're not going to convince me he could make those shots.
Why?
Because I tried them, and I'm an expert marksman. He wasn't. And I couldn't do them. I couldn't even work. The fastest I could work the Manlichuk-Arcano bolt was 8.5 seconds. And they're telling me he got 3 shots off in 6 seconds with that bolt action piece of crap weapon. I tried it. We simulated the whole thing. I couldn't do it. And I qualified expert at age 50 when I was governor of Minnesota yet.
Did Neil Armstrong land on the moon?
I don't know.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think he did.
Why would you believe that?
Because we have the technology to get there.
We have the technology to investigate an assassination.
Sure we do, but we don't.
Well, we have thoroughly.
When a coup d'etat takes place, there can be no trial.
So you're saying Ruby was working for the KGB? Ruby was working for the Cuban intelligence service. The Cubans? Yes, sir. You know that to be a fact? Yes, sir, I do.
Soon after the assassination, Sturgis says the CIA and FBI brought evidence to President Lyndon Johnson, suggesting the Soviet Union was involved in JFK's murder.
That the Soviet Union, through the KGB, successfully assassinated the President of the United States with the help of Fidel Castro and got away with it. Yes. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Sturgis told me he wants his story out because he himself has been accused of having something to do with the assassination. He says he is tired of hearing lies.
He was scared because Khrushchev says, don't do this or we're going to do that. You know, so he didn't do it, and he deserted the Bay of Pigs. I was involved in the Bay of Pigs. A lot of people, friends of mine, that were killed in the Bay of Pigs. And I resent that. Don't play political games with me. I'm a military man. I'm a soldier. I go fight. But damn it, if I risk my ass out there and I'm getting shot at, I don't want some stupid-ass politician to go ahead and make deals behind my back where my people, or maybe myself, are going to get killed.
one or possibly two people behind the grassy knoll, but at least one who fired the shot that penetrated the throat of the president in front.
Who was that?
KGB agent.
Carlos Marcellos met with anyone, Johnson or anyone?
He was at that party the night before the assassination.
Okay,
See, a lot of people do not understand how the mafia or the organized crime, whatever you want to call it, is involved in our government. It's a silent government, you know. If they would pay their dues, they could operate, okay?
Right.
And even the Texas Rangers, because of the organized crime, allowed the mafia to come into Texas. Not many people know that. We were playing poker at the Carousel Club, and Jack Ruby came over, and he said, "You know what this is?" And I said, "Yeah, Jack, I know that you run with the Great White Fathers of Dallas. I knew this. I mean, these are things we just flat knew." But it stung me that he would be this involved with knowing where the President of the United States. At that time in my life, I thought they were untouchable, you know, the President. So then, of course, the information came out that, you know, about the assassination.
Yeah.
And that's primarily because Lyndon was under the gun over some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Had the assassination not happened the day that it did, when Lyndon Johnson would have probably gone to prison, they would have gotten rid of him. He was so involved with some of this.
So Mac Wallace was at this private meeting at Merchant's house.
Malcolm Wallace was Lyndon Johnson's hatchet man. I mean, there were, I think, about 18, 19 murders that...
So he was Johnson's shooter?
Yeah. And I was out at the Dallas Gun Club, and it was a day or two before the assassination, and who was out there but Malcolm Wallace? And this guy was so great. If he pulled a trigger, he hit his target. I've watched him hour on end, and he loved 22s.
So he was a very accurate shooter.
He was the
marksman.
best. He was a good marksman. He didn't miss.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was found dead in Marshall, Texas. Was it Marshall? No. One of these Texas, Pittsburgh maybe, Texas. Again, someone said he had been killed first and then placed in this car. I know the car was picked up and all evidence was removed.
when he was done, he had a 34-point match. And when you mention that in criminal circles to an investigator, how confident would you feel with a 34-point match? Oh, that's a slam dunk. It can't miss. It doesn't get any better than that. You give me a 34-point match on any case in the United States, I'll take it to court and win.
The inked and the latent print are made by the same finger. And the other evidence that I've been presented with was Malcolm Wallace's left little finger, without a reasonable doubt.
There is Lee Oswald. He's been shot. He's been shot. Lee Oswald has been shot. There's the man with a gun. It's absolute panic here in the basement of Dallas Police Headquarters.
Now, were you familiar with Jack Ruby?
Yes, I knew Jack Ruby.
Well, had you ever had a drink with him?
Yes, on several occasions.
How did you become familiar with him?
Well, he owned the club next door, and everybody knew everybody. We'd just go back and forth between clubs. I just became acquainted with him as the guy that owned the club next door.
You were, what, 16 or 17 years old?
16.
And at that time, your employment in the club was limited to what?
It wasn't limited.
You were a singer, weren't you?
Yeah.
Did you participate in the stripping at all?
No, I didn't.
All right. And where was Ruby located?
He was sitting at a table.
And was he alone?
No.
And who was with him at the table?
To the best of my memory, there was a man and Jada, a stripper.
Now you say the word Jada.
Jada, how long did you know Jack Ruby?
I knew Jack Ruby for approximately 4, 5, 6 months.
In what relationship?
I was employed as the feature at the Carousel Club.
What kind of a man was he?
Jack Ruby was a fanatic. He was a very nervous man, a very violent man. He would cause hassles and harassments and always running around, very energetic.
Would you say he had a violent streak in him?
Oh, yeah, very much so. Yes, he would get carried away by something and lose all rational thinking. He would just go off, zoom, and just, he had to prove something. He had to be somebody.
Approximately how long before the assassination did this take place?
About 2 weeks.
All right.
The best of my memory, 2 weeks, 10 days, 3 weeks, somewhere. It wasn't any more than that.
All right. Jada was at the table with Ruby, and who else was there?
Another man that was introduced to me as Lee Oswald.
Now, who did the introduction?
Jack Ruby.
Was there anybody else at the table? What, if anything, did Ruby say about Oswald, for example, who he was employed by?
Well, whenever he introduced him, he said, "This is Lee Oswald, and he's with the CIA," which didn't register anything with me because I was...
Assassination, and the time of the assassination, where were you?
In Dewey Plaza.
And what were you doing there?
Taking pictures.
And what were you wearing? So you were actually taking pictures
Yes.
of Kennedy at the time he was shot?
Yes.
All right. Now, Kennedy was shot on a Friday. Can you tell us what happened to the film and the camera?
Okay, to the best of my memory, I don't know for sure if our club was closed, and they showed me some cards and introduced themselves. I don't remember their names, but they said they were from the FBI and the CIA, and that stuck in my mind because I knew of it. And they said that they would like to take the film, develop them, view them, and then they would see that I got them back.
And was it ever returned to you?
No, it wasn't.
I'm going to turn this off just for a second.